What's happening, y'all? Welcome inside the Fantasy Stock Exchange. Bush coming at you solo again. Apologize to those of you who appreciate when I'm joined by somebody, but unfortunately, Tyler's dealing with some family stuff right now. He wasn't able to join me for this one. But you know what it is. Sunday, we just had football. It's about 8 p.m. Eastern time as I'm recording this. It was a pretty exciting day of football. Some exciting finishes, some not so exciting finishes. We're going to hit the intro, and then we're going to get into the first game of the recap here. All right, guys, as always, if you appreciate any of the videos, any of the content that we're putting out here at the Fantasy Stock Exchange, make sure you go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you're new to the channel or if you just like the content. As always, like this video. It takes 2 seconds and it helps us out tremendously. Comment any of your thoughts down below, some of your bad beats, some of your big victories. I actually had a league where I had DK Metcalf, Robert Woods, and Dalvin Cook alone in the early window. So I literally put up 112 points in the first window of games, and I had it was just ridiculous. Like I'm about to hang 220 on my opponent. Anyways, the first game of the slate here was Buffalo 24, New England 21. So the Bills, obviously from an NFL perspective, take a pretty commanding lead in the Are the Patriots Done sweepstakes, with the Patriots falling to 2-5 and the Bills being at 6-2. Their only real competition is Miami now, which I never thought I'd say, but that's where we're at in the AFC East. As far as Josh Allen went, he kind of had a bad game, to be honest. Not a great outing from him. But I think the more interesting thing from the Bills side of things in this game was the fact that this backfield had quite a bit of volume, and both guys actually looked fairly good in this game. Both Singletary, 14 carries, 86 yards, and Zach Moss, who scored twice on the ground, had 14 carries for 81 yards. So maybe we're starting to see the running game pick up a little bit here. If for those of you who are mad at me for telling you to sit Zach Moss, I didn't see this coming. This was a great run defense, and they just sucked in this game. Stephon Diggs had a pretty good game in this one. It was a tough matchup for him even with Stephon Gilmore out for this game. You knew they were like Bill Belichick's taking away your best option. That's Stephon Diggs. Everyone knows that. So the 9 targets, 6 receptions, 92 yards. That's a pretty solid game for him. If you started Cole Beasley, I hate to tell you, you were completely wrong to do so, but you were. On the Patriots side of things, Cam Newton didn't have a great day passing. He did save his fantasy day, obviously, as I mentioned in the preview show. I was like, hey, this dude doesn't need to have a good passing day because his rushing will save his day. And it did that. 9 carries, 54 yards, and a touchdown on the ground, despite only passing for 174 yards through the air and not having any passing touchdowns. In the Patriots backfield, 16 carries for 102 yards and a touchdown for Damian Harris. He looked good doing so. It's nice to see that he's actually coming along and he's looking like a feature back. I'm not exactly sure how much we can trust Damian Harris going forward. It's not like Damian Harris is this this great player and he's in some backfield where they're just used to giving workhorse touches. Like next week, Damian Harris might have 5 carries. Like that's just the way the Patriots backfield works. It's not like, I know I say this about a couple other backfields as well, but it's true. Like the coaching dictates how they're going to use players. It usually takes a very special player for a coach to go off of coaching tendencies. And like the coaching tendency of Josh McDaniels and the Patriots offense is to use multiple running backs. They still did use multiple running backs in this game. They're going to continue to do so. But I think Damian Harris is the back to own in this backfield, and that includes James White. I would rather start Damian Harris kind of week over week than James White. As far as receiving goes, probably no one started a Patriots receiver, so I don't even want to talk about it, but Jacoby Myers led the team in receiving with 58 yards and 6 receptions. He had 10 targets. I mean, if you're absolutely desperate, you want to pick up a guy who you're just screwed and you need to throw into your lineup, but I think N'Keal Harry is going to be back next week, so I'd rather start him than Jacoby Myers. On to the next game. This one wasn't overly interesting, but this one was pretty interesting from a NFL perspective. This had some pretty big implications considering the Titans actually lost this game 31-20 for the Cincinnati Bengals. Joe Burrow with probably the biggest win of his career against a very good team. And I saw NFL Update tweeted out that the Bengals won this game despite being down 4 offensive linemen and Joe Mixon. So this was a great win for Cincinnati. A pretty disappointing loss for the Tannehill-led Titans. Joe Burrow in this game, he did exactly what you wanted him to do if you started him or streamed him. He had 249 and 2 touchdowns. Pretty solid outing from him. Gio Bernard got his job done as well with 15 carries, 62 yards, and a touchdown. Also added a receiving touchdown and a couple yards through the air. Samaje Perine, for whatever reason, was also kind of involved on the ground in this game. He didn't look very good. He siphoned a touchdown from Gio Bernard, but I mean, I'm not excited about Samaje Perine going forward. He had a carry for 16 yards, and then he had what would have been 9 carries for 16 yards after that. So I mean, he just was not like, he's not a good player. So don't worry about Samaje Perine. Joe Mixon, I expect to be back. After this week, the Bengals are going to be on bye in week 9. I expect Joe Mixon back after this week. So if you have Gio Bernard, I don't want to drop him quite yet, but if we start to hear things like Joe Mixon's going to be back after the bye or whatever, like I don't blame you for dropping Gio Bernard after this game, just because I do expect Joe Mixon to be back. And obviously we've seen when Joe Mixon is there, he is the guy, and he's not ceding any work to Gio Bernard just because he filled in pretty well. Speaking of filling in pretty well, T. Higgins is the number one receiver on this team. I don't care what anyone says. This guy has been consistent every single week, pretty much. He had 9 targets in this game, 6 receptions, 78 yards. He didn't get into the end zone, but that's a great floor. If that's your floor, that's like the type of floor that Stephon Diggs has, or someone of the upper echelon receivers. Like when you're the number one target in a pretty good passing offense, you're going to have a floor like this. And Tyler Boyd in this one also had a great game. He had a great matchup with Christian Fulton out in this one. I mentioned on the Start Sit live stream this morning that Dane Cruikshank was playing the slot, and Tyler Boyd was probably going to have a good game. And then AJ Green also had a pretty solid game if you were forced to play. Or sorry, not AJ Green. Never mind. Auden Tate actually stole AJ Green's work that he got, and this team looks like it's probably going to trade John Ross. They look pretty disgruntled right now between the two parties, so I'd imagine he's going to be gone. Auden Tate, I mean, AJ Green just got screwed out of this one. He probably should have had the Auden Tate stat line, did not. Drew Sample, you can drop. He dropped the donut in this one. On the Titans side of things, Ryan Tannehill didn't have like the greatest game. He did okay for fantasy at 2 touchdowns through the air, 233 yards. He had 20 yards on the ground, helped buoy his stats a little bit. Didn't have a great fantasy day, but he also didn't kill you. Derrick Henry, 18 carries, 112 yards, just looked great on pretty much every carry that he took too. He had a touchdown in this one. He definitely came through for you if you were starting him as the RB1 that he is. To the receiver position, this one's like kind of where we have the discrepancies here. So Corey Davis, for whatever reason, Ryan Tannehill loves Corey Davis. 10 targets, 8 receptions, 128 yards. And I think I honestly, like, I'm going to take the L on this one. I misjudged the impact that Corey Davis has on this offense for Jonnu Smith, because Jonnu Smith only received 2 targets in this one for 29 yards. And I think Corey Davis being in the lineup really impacts Jonnu Smith. And that's not a good thing if you own Jonnu Smith like I do. I have Gronkowski in that league. So I mean, I'm probably going to be kicking myself this week when Gronkowski goes off against the Giants and I started Jonnu Smith. But I don't think Jonnu Smith is a top 5 tight end as long as Corey Davis is there, because A.J. Brown, who also had a solid game in this one, he saved his day with a touchdown. He would have had a lot worse of a game if it wasn't for the touchdown in this one, but he had 7 targets, 4 receptions, 24 yards, and a touchdown. So he didn't kill you if you had to start him. But yeah, Jonnu Smith, we need to temper expectations as long as Corey Davis is in the lineup, because Corey Davis looks better than he used to look. And he also has Tannehill's trust, clearly. And Jonnu, maybe he's still coming off the ankle injury, and that's why he's not performing as well. Maybe he's not playing as well. I'm not exactly sure what the snap counts were or anything like that. I'll get that information to the Start Sit show for Wednesday. But Jonnu Smith, we have to temper expectations for him. He's not a top 5 tight end going forward, as long as Corey Davis is in the lineup and as long as Jonnu is dealing with the ankle injury that he's dealing with. To the next game, we got the Raiders and Browns, and this one was just an absolute slugfest. Unfortunately, for fantasy owners in this game, this one was very heavily impacted by weather. There was like winds and like sleet and all that kind of stuff. So this was a slugfest. 16-6, Raiders win this game. Derek Carr had, obviously, like, it was just a slugfest. He had 112 yards and a touchdown through the air, so he killed you if you started him. Josh Jacobs did not kill you if you started him, but you kind of would have liked to see a better day, considering he had 3 straight goal line carries in this game. Didn't score on any of them. 31 carries for him in this game, 128 yards. So not the greatest outing for Josh Jacobs. Receiver-wise, Darren Waller didn't do well. Like, no one did well receiving pretty much on either team. The only guy that kind of did well was Jarvis Landry on the Brown side of things. But Yeah, I'm not willing to take away a whole lot from this game. I'm not going to be like, oh man, Henry Ruggs, first of all, got robbed of a touchdown. He had his toe in the end zone. And then he got his foot down and they didn't count it as a touchdown. So he should have had a better game in this one. But I'll take the L on telling people to start Henry Ruggs. Obviously, that didn't work out. But I think had the weather not been a complete shitstorm, then this game might have gone differently. Same goes for Harrison Bryant, who I think is still fine going forward. And I wouldn't be overly worried about that as long as Austin Hooper is out. On the Cleveland side of things, no one really performed that well. Kareem Hunt had a bit of a disappointing game on the ground and through the air, to be honest. This wasn't a great fantasy game. No one really smashed. Josh Jacobs was the highest performing player in this game from a fantasy perspective, and even he didn't have that great of a game. So again, we'll just chalk this up to weather. A lot of you guys were concerned on the live stream this morning, being like, hey, is the weather going to affect this game? Should I sit certain players and all that stuff? I would have said, had we known a little bit more about the weather, I would have said you probably don't want to start Henry Ruggs if the weather is bad, and you want to temper expectations for Jarvis Landry. Maybe not start Harrison Bryant as well, probably lower him down in the rankings. But Kareem Hunt, Josh Jacobs, you probably were starting anyways. And then the quarterbacks, I would have seen a downtick as well. To the next game, Colts at Lions. The Colts hang a 40 burger on the Detroit Lions. And Phillip Rivers has a pretty good game in this one. I said you could stream him in this matchup because this is a bad pass defense. And I was right. 262 yards, 3 touchdowns for Phillip Rivers. But I don't think anyone cares about Phillip Rivers as a passer, because the biggest story in this one is, what the hell do we do with Jonathan Taylor, man? Like 11 carries, 22 yards. Jordan Wilkins got 20 carries for 89 yards and a touchdown. And not only that, but Jordan Wilkins looks just miles better than Jonathan Taylor. And Jordan Wilkins, I saw the snap counts came out. Jordan Wilkins played like 51% of the snaps in this game. Jonathan Taylor only played like 25 snaps total. Like, this is just a mess. At least I thought it was a possibility that coming out of the bye week, the Indianapolis Colts were going to be like, okay, let's get our rookie running back the touches that he needs. But that's just not the case. And I think we need to face the fact that Jonathan Taylor is not the running back that we saw at Wisconsin. He is not playing that way. I've had this concern with him this whole season. Even back when he was getting a lot of volume, I was like, I want to see him like make some people miss and like break some tackles and stuff. Like he is running like David Montgomery out there, except he's not getting David Montgomery's volume. So as far as I'm concerned, he is a back end RB2. That's where I had him ranked this week. And a lot of people disagreed with me. A lot of people still had him ranked in the top 10. I just totally don't agree with that. And we're seeing the results here. Jonathan Taylor is not Nick Chubb. He's not Josh Jacobs. We got to stop pretending like that's going to happen at some point. Until I see it, I'm going to continue to rank Jonathan Taylor low. And he's a guy I think you can bench more often than not if you have great options. Most of the time, that's not going to be the case because not a lot of people have great running back options, but I would have benched Jonathan Taylor in this game had I known that this is how they were going to use him. Obviously, hindsight's 2020, but as far as Nyheim Hines goes, he got 2 receiving touchdowns. I don't care. Like, I really don't care. You can go ahead and waste your money on your fab money on Nyheim Hines. He's going to do this from time to time. He has games like this. People are going to start him next week, and he's going to completely disappoint you because that's who Nyheim Hines is. He's going to get 2 targets and 1 carry next week and drop 2 points. So don't start Nyheim Hines going forward. The wide receiver position in this game, just no one really to speak home about on the Indianapolis side. Michael Pittman Jr. was activated for this game. Didn't really get involved. T.Y. Hilton left this game with a groin injury. Like, he's droppable. He shouldn't even be owned at this point. He is completely over the hill. He's completely washed. To the Detroit side of things, Matthew Stafford had 3 touchdowns and 336 in this game. So he definitely came through for you. If you started him in your fantasy leagues, DeAndre Swift, man, 6 carries for 1 yard. Matt Patricia strikes again. This was a bit of a game script thing where the Lions were kind of just out, but they were just boat raced early. And that's why they kind of had to abandon the run. DeAndre Swift had a couple yards through the air, but nothing really to write home about. He definitely killed you if you started him. TJ Hawkinson continues to be a great tight end option. You got to keep holding on to keep starting TJ Hawkinson. Another big story from this game is that Kenny Golladay left this game with, I can't even remember what the injury was. It was lower body related. That's going to need to be monitored. Obviously, if Kenny Golladay is out, we've seen what this offense has been like with Kenny Golladay out. No, it doesn't automatically make Marvin Jones a top 10 wide receiver. Marvin Jones did have 2 touchdowns in this game, which is good to see, that knowing that you maybe could start him if Kenny Golladay is out. But I still think this offense is better. Marvin Jones is better. TJ Hawkinson's better. All these guys are better when Kenny Golladay is there. So hopefully he is okay. And unfortunately, if you started him, he dropped a donut, and that's not great. But sometimes you just got to bite the bullet and take those L's on the chin. Yeah, other than that, this wasn't an overly exciting game either, though. But 5-2 for the Indianapolis Colts, despite having Phillip Rivers kind of guarded and the rookie running back not exactly giving them what they expected. On to the Vikings and Packers. A bit of an upset here. The Packers lost this game 28-22, courtesy of Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook did everything in this game. This was all Dalvin Cook. If you started Kirk Cousins, he disappointed you. Dalvin Cook, 30 carries, 163 yards, and 3 touchdowns on the ground. Also had two catches for 63 yards and a touchdown, including a 50-yard receiving touchdown in this game. He dropped 50 points if you play in a PPR league. 50 points. If you played against Dalvin Cook, you lost. If you played him in your lineup, you probably won, because that 50-point games don't happen very often. And Dalvin Cook absolutely carried in this one. Justin Jefferson, from what I actually saw in this game, this is the interesting thing that I took away from this game, aside from Dalvin Cook being an absolute beast, is that Jair Alexander looked to be on Justin Jefferson a lot. And my one friend who's a Vikings fan, he said that Alexander was actually shadowing Justin Jefferson. So that's big news going forward, because Justin Jefferson, PFF expected Justin Jefferson to be on Josh Jackson and Jair Alexander to be on Adam Thielen in like a shadow matchup type situation. So if Justin Jefferson is now being shadowed, that means that opposing defenses are treating Jefferson as the number one receiver, which is going to open up things for Adam Thielen. It's going to downgrade Justin Jefferson, obviously, because he's going to be seeing more attention and more top tier corners and stuff. But that was interesting to see, because I didn't expect to see that quite yet. I know Jefferson's been playing well, but Adam Thielen's got a track record. He's a Pro Bowler. You'd expect them to still be respecting Adam Thielen more than they'd expect a rookie first-round pick receiver, but they're respecting this dude. And I guess Mike Pettine's defense obviously can't stop the run, but they did a good job of stopping the pass in this one. To the other side of the ball in this game, and this was the wildest stat I've ever heard in my life, but only 2 players scored all the points in this game, because Davante Adams on the other side of things, Dalvin Cook scored all the points for the Vikings. Davante Adams scored 3 touchdowns on only 53 yards receiving in this game. So, I mean, Adams is a red zone monster. He has the 15 touchdown potential that you want out of a top tier receiver if you're going to draft them early, because Aaron Rodgers and him, obviously it's just tunnel vision. Aaron Rodgers has the ball. He drops back. He goes, where's number 17? If 17's not open, then I go elsewhere with the ball, because Davante Adams, it seems like he's his first read on every single play. And the 291 yards and 3 touchdowns, those 3 touchdowns are courtesy of Davante Adams. So both Rodgers and Adams had a great game in this one. Robert Tonyan actually did pretty well in this game. I didn't expect him to have an overly great game, but he did. And then Jamal Williams also had a pretty solid outing in this one. He had quite a few touches. I expect Aaron Jones to be back next week, but if he's not, again, you can continue to roll out Jamal Williams, knowing that he's going to get the bulk of the carries as well as a lot of receiving work. So on to the next game, we have the Jets at the Chiefs. Sorry, the Kansas City Chiefs absolutely rolled in this one, 35-9 over the putrid New York Jets. So Patrick Mahomes smashed in this game. If you play Patrick Mahomes, 416 yards, 5 touchdowns, and a lot of them were bombs too. He had a bomb to Tyreek Hill. He had a bomb to Demarcus Robinson. He had this was just a bonanza of big plays. And obviously all the pass catchers that you could have started in this game came through for you. If you had Travis Kelce, he came through. 8 receptions, 109 yards, and a touchdown on 12 targets. It's great. Great to see from Travis Kelce. 4 receptions, 98 yards, 2 touchdowns from Tyreek Hill. Absolutely smashed if you played him. If you had to play McCole Hardman, he did great. 7 receptions, 96 yards, and a touchdown through the air. And he also had a rushing touchdown as well. Or no, I'm sorry. That touchdown through the air was like a shovel pass or something. It looked like a rushing touchdown when it happened. Anyway, I think the biggest story in this one is obviously the Chiefs offense gets back on track, but the rushing offense did not get back on track, because Clyde Edwards-Helaire only has 6 carries for 21 yards in this game. Le'Veon Bell, 6 carries for 7 yards. And for whatever reason, I don't know why the hell Andy Reid's doing this, but giving Darrell Williams 3 carries and Darwin Thompson 4 carries, why? You have 2 great running backs with Clyde and Le'Veon. Just don't even use the other 2 guys. To me, it just seems like a complete waste. Everyone knows that these guys are not dynamic, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire probably played a very low snap share in this game, because I watched a lot of this game and I did not see him on the field. And when he is on the field, it's so weird because you'll see Clyde go out on a route and he'll be wide open. He'll be in the flat. It's like 2nd and 10 or something. If he catches the ball, he's got the first down. And Mahomes will just gun it downfield. On one of the Tyreek touchdowns, I believe Tyreek was splitting like a cover 2 or something. And Clyde is literally so wide open that, and obviously you can't blame Mahomes. He just threw a touchdown. Like he threw it downfield and got a touchdown. But Clyde was just so wide open. He had like a 10-yard catch and run. Probably could have ran for another 15, 20 yards after that. But again, he took the deep shot and it paid off. But like Clyde just seems like he's always open in the receiving game. And him and Mahomes are just not on the same page. It's super weird. And then to the Jets side of things, just not a whole lot of takeaways. It's just a bad offense. You don't want pieces of this. The running game is a complete mess. It's a 50-50 split between Frank Gore and LaMichael Pirine. Both of them combined for 57 yards because they're terrible running backs and a terrible offense. Sam Darnold just sucks. Denzel Mims, like 3 targets, 2 receptions, 42 yards. Like he looked okay on those targets, but for some reason they threw the ball to Braxton Berrios 11 times. Like unless Jamison Crowder is playing, you don't want to start any Jets unless you're absolutely desperate because this offense is garbage and it's not going to yield you any kind of fantasy production that you're going to ride home about. All right, to the next game. Miami Dolphins 28, Los Angeles Rams 17. Tua Tagovailoa gets his first NFL win in this game. He had a rather pedestrian showing, though, only 93 yards passing on 22 pass attempts. They kind of shielded the rookie quite a bit. He did get his first touchdown pass, though, threw a touchdown to Devontae Parker earlier on in the game. Myles Gaskin didn't kill you if you started him. Obviously, you wanted to see more out of him, but this was a pretty tough run defense, and he got into the end zone to save his day. And then again, I said going into this game, I was like, okay, so we don't really know who Tua is going to favor, right? We don't know if he's going to like Preston Williams, if he's going to like Devontae Parker, if he's going to like Mike Gesicki, if he's going to like Isaiah Ford. Like we don't know who Tua is going to come in and be like, this is my guy. In this game, it didn't really give us a whole lot of clarity, to be honest, because Devontae Parker had 1 target. It was a touchdown, but he had 1 target for 3 yards. And then Preston Williams had a couple drops in this game, 2 receptions, 15 yards. There just was not a whole lot of offense in this game on the Dolphins side of things. They had it was a lot like the Chiefs last week. The Dolphins had a special teams touchdown, I believe, and a receiving touchdown. Yeah, because they had a kick return from Jakeem Grant, and then they had a fumble recovery touchdown from someone as well. So like this was just a game where they didn't have to play a whole lot of offense because their defense and special teams did the work. So if you played the Dolphins defense, then you probably got a good outing out of them. Onto the Rams side of things, Jared Goff had a pretty rough game from like a real life quarterback perspective, but he didn't kill you if you started him in fantasy because he passed for 355 yards and a touchdown. But obviously you would have liked to see a lot more out of him in a bad matchup. He actually probably did kill you now that I look at these numbers. In this game, another big story out of this one was that Darrell Henderson left this game and he got pretty banged up. And after that, we saw Malcolm Brown get a pretty decent share of the work. We also saw Cam Akers get involved as well. So if Darrell Henderson's going to be out, to me, this makes Cam Akers a good waiver wire ad because I do believe he's probably unowned in a lot of people's leagues because he's just been kind of phased out of the offense. I think if Darrell Henderson's out, let's just assume he's going to be out for a couple of weeks with like whatever injury he had. He's going to be out for 2 to 3 weeks. I think Malcolm Brown and Cam Akers are both in a committee. They're both splitting the backfield, but there is a world where Cam Akers like takes over the backfield as long as Darrell Henderson's out. But to be honest, I think Darrell Henderson's still the guy in this backfield. He looks the best. I think whenever he's back, if he's back next week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks from now, I still think it's Darrell Henderson's backfield. So I wouldn't be going and blowing $50 of fab on Cam Akers because I don't think he's going to be like some workhorse running back because Darrell Henderson's hurt. Unless Darrell Henderson's like out for the year with like a torn Achilles or something, which I don't think happened. But last time I said that, Odell Beckham tore his ACL. Either way, Darrell Henderson, if he's back, then he's going to be fine. But in this game, he left early and he probably killed you if you started him. Cooper Kupp just like ungodly volume in this game. Like 21 targets. I have never seen a receiver exceed 20 targets before. That is ridiculous. 21 targets, 11 catches, 110 yards. If you're getting 21 targets, you better get over 150 yards, in my opinion. The fact that he didn't get over 150 yards is pretty bad. But Robert Woods had a great game in this one. He had 7 receptions, 85 yards, and a touchdown. Also added a rushing touchdown to that equation as well. So the 2 Rams receivers, the main 2 guys, if you started them, then you definitely got your money's worth. But other than that, there wasn't a whole lot else that went on in this game. But this was a pretty action-packed game in terms of like injuries and like some new storylines and all that kind of stuff. to the next game, which is probably the best game in terms of like real life NFL perspective, because the Pittsburgh Steelers are now 7-0. They take down the Baltimore Ravens 28-24. Just okay, let's what side do I want to start with? Let's start with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So the Pittsburgh Steelers, Ben Roethlisberger didn't have a huge outing in this one, but he didn't kill you if you had to start him because he had 2 touchdowns and 182 yards passing. I mean, not great, but could have been worse. James Conner wasn't very effective on the ground, but he did get a rushing touchdown to save his day. Also caught a few balls to help buoy some of his stats as well. At the receiver position in this game, not a well, okay, so let's start with this. Diontae Johnson has now like left early of what, like 3 games now, which I mean, that's not great. Like, because there's a good chance you started him in all 3 games. If you've owned Diontae Johnson this whole season, there's a good chance that you started him against the Texans when he left early with a concussion, and against the I can't even remember who the other team was that he left early against, but these 3 times that this has happened, you probably started him and he's probably killed you. So, I mean, like, I don't know what to tell you. You probably have to keep starting him if he's healthy, but he left with a hamstring strain or whatever in this game. And honestly, like, if you own him, you might even hope, just be like, just get healthy, dude. Like, stop playing when you're not healthy and leaving early, because this just keeps happening. Juju Smith-Schuster in this game had a pretty solid outing, not like a great one, but if you had a PPR league, then he was probably pretty good in that one. Eric Ebron continues to be a top 12 tight end that I've said that he's going to be. And then Chase Claypool always comes through with a touchdown, 42 yards in this one, so he did okay if you had to start him as well. On the Ravens side of things, Lamar Jackson, like, just didn't look good at all in this game. Had a terrible game passing the ball. Like, just didn't. He doesn't look in sync. He doesn't look in sync with his line. He doesn't look in sync with his receivers. He looks like he's thinking too much. Like, all this kind of stuff about Lamar Jackson that clearly means that he is not his MVP form that he was last year. And if you spent an early pick on him, you're probably regretting it right now, because you expected to get this like week in, week out fantasy stud. And he was good for fantasy because he's rushing for 65 yards, but you want to see him like dominate, right? Like, if you drafted this guy, you want to enjoy watching him too. And he just hasn't been that guy. On the ground side of things, because this was pretty important with Mark Ingram out for this game, we wanted to see what the split was between J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards. Well, it was pretty even. 15 carries, 113 yards for J.K. Dobbins, and he just looked absolutely electric on almost every one of them, because he just looked so good. I can't believe if he went to a team that was like going to use a feature back and all this kind of stuff, he would be a marvel for fantasy. If he was on the Indianapolis Colts right now, I promise you he'd be so good. He'd be so much better than Jonathan Taylor, and probably same goes for the Chiefs. If he was on the Chiefs, he'd be so much better. Anyway, Gus Edwards also gets 16 carries, so don't get too overexcited about J.K. Dobbins, because Gus Edwards also had 16 carries and also looked pretty good on his carries. 16 carries, 87 yards for him. And this is just a backfield that hopefully, honestly, going forward, it should just be these 2 guys, because Mark Ingram doesn't look as explosive as these guys. And these 2 dudes they're just looking way better, and they're helping the offense way more. So I hope going forward that these guys continue to get the bulk of the carries. Hopefully J.K. Dobbins is able to continue to edge out this backfield. But honestly, if you're expecting J.K. Dobbins to become a 70, 80% workhorse back, it's not going to happen. I'm telling you right now, it's not the way that John Harbaugh rolls, and it's probably not going to be how he rolls next year and going forward. It's probably just not his philosophy to have like a feature back like that. I know we saw him back in like the day with like Ray Rice and stuff, but it's been a while since that happened. I don't expect that to happen anytime soon. So J.K. Dobbins, I think his ceiling in terms of like his usage is like what Aaron Jones gets, which is like 60% snap share. He's got to be efficient on it, obviously. So it's good to know that you can start to maybe use J.K. Dobbins a little bit more confidently than you could without Mark Ingram. But again, Gus Edwards ain't going anywhere. So don't get too over crazy with J.K. Dobbins. Receiving wise in this game, just not great. Marquise Brown absolutely saved his day with a touchdown, but he still didn't have a good game. Willie Snead led this team in receiving. Just again, this passing offense is not that great. Mark Andrews doesn't look as good as he was last year either. So I think this passing offense and this offense in general, we need to take a step back and realize that this is not a top 5 offense, probably not even a top 10 offense. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about starting guys like Marquise Brown and Mark Andrews and stuff, because this is not the offense that it was last year. If it was, Mark Andrews would be a top 3 tight end, and Marquise Brown would probably take a huge step forward, and J.K. Dobbins would be even more efficient than he already is, but this is not the same offense. So just keep that in mind. On to the next game we have here, Chargers and Broncos, and the Chargers are just continuing to lose games in absolutely heartbreaking fashion, with the Broncos winning at the very last second of the game on basically a PI call that got them a first down and goal. And Drew Lock throws the ball to KJ Hamler to win the game. Speaking of Drew Lock, he had a pretty good game in this one. I don't really think anyone would have started him in fantasy, but if you did, maybe you played him in DFS or something like that. He had a good game. So definitely hats off to him. Phillip Lindsay only had 6 carries in this game, but he took a 55-yard touchdown to the house. So if you had to play him, then he definitely got lucky for you there. Melvin Gordon was not effective on the ground at all. We're going to have to see what the split's going to be like going forward. I think it's going to be like Melvin Gordon as the primary guy still. I do think he's still the primary running back. He did catch 7, or he had 7 targets in this game. So he's definitely the passing down back in this offense, but Phillip Lindsay is still going to be involved, and Phillip Lindsay is a good player, and he's probably a better runner than Melvin Gordon. So I do expect to see like if Melvin Gordon gets 10 carries, Phillip Lindsay probably got 10 carries. Like you basically just have to hope for goal line work and receiving work with Melvin Gordon, because I think in terms of rushing, it's going to be pretty similar. Receiving wise in this game, Jerry Jeudy had 10 targets, only caught 4 balls for 73 yards, but nice target volume from him there. Also had a pretty big play in this one where he just looks fantastic. Noah Fant came through for you if you had to start him as much as one can without getting a touchdown at the tight end position. 7 receptions of 47 yards, nothing to sneeze at. And then on the Charger side of things, we have Justin Herbert just absolutely continuing his tear. Didn't have as good of a game in this one, but in terms of fantasy production, he definitely came through for you from that perspective, throwing 3 touchdowns and having 278 passing. Justin Jackson is the lead back here, as I kind of talked about. This was more a matchup for Justin Jackson, and it looked like he was kind of limited last week with the ankle injury that he was dealing with, and that's why Josh Kelly, along with the matchup against the Jaguars in the game script, got the majority of the carries. So Justin Jackson is the guy to own, and I think he's like a top 25 running back as long as Austin Eckler is going to be out, because, I mean, he got 20 touches in this game, and he had 5 targets, and he looked really good on most of his work that he got. Mike Williams had a just spectacular catch again for another touchdown. So if he started Mike Williams, he came through for you, 5 receptions, 99 yards, and a touchdown. Keenan Allen also just uber consistent, just a complete stud across the board. Both those 2 guys came through for you. Hunter Henry, a bit of a disappointing game in that one. So not great from his perspective, but I don't want to downgrade Hunter Henry too much. I think he just had a bad game. I think that's pretty much it for this game. On to the 49ers at the Seahawks. And another guy that if you went up against him or if you had him, he definitely helped you win. And that's DK Metcalf. 12 receptions, 161 yards and 2 touchdowns, 15 targets for him in this game. It was really kind of shocking, to be honest, because if you heard what I said on the matchup show, I basically said I expected this to be more of a Tyler Lockett game because DK Metcalf was going up against Jason Verrett, who was playing well. We'll have to see if he actually did go up against Jason Verrett. Maybe they moved him around or whatever the case may be. They might have just got him off of him because Jason Verrett was shutting people down. And from what I saw in this game, Jason Verrett didn't have like a bad game or anything like that. So I don't think DK Metcalf was on him a majority of the time. I'm guessing they moved him around. And good for them because he just absolutely looked like a man on a mission in this one. And then Tyler Lockett, I think you just have to take your lumps and accept the fact that this was a Metcalf game. And Tyler Lockett just got the short end of the stick. What do you want from him? He put up like 50 points last week. In this game, DJ Dallas absolutely dominated the backfield. It wasn't even close. 18 carries of the 20 running back carries. He got 18 of them for DJ Dallas. And he also got 2 goal line a goal line touchdown as well. And then he also had 5 receptions, 17 yards, and a receiving touchdown. So DJ Dallas, if for whatever reason you had to start him, I wasn't confident in starting him because I thought Homer would be more involved. But he came through if you had to start him. So kudos to him for coming through for that. Russell Wilson, obviously, in this game just had a great game as usual, 4 touchdowns and 261 through the air. The Seahawks actually won this game 37-27. I didn't actually mention that. On the 49ers side of things, Jimmy Garoppolo left this game. Supposedly, he re-aggravated his ankle injury that he had been dealing with the past couple weeks. And Nick Mullins came into this game and actually played far better than Jimmy Garoppolo, posting 128.4 quarterback rating, which was actually better than Russell Wilson's quarterback rating in this game. So if Jimmy Garoppolo is out, I don't want to say Nick Mullins upgrades this offense, but it's not a downgrade. Like, they're basically the same type of quarterback. They're both kind of game managers, and they thrive off of play action, and Kyle Shanahan puts them in good position to make plays. So if you have Brandon Ayuk or whoever you're kind of concerned about, George Kittle, who also got injured in this game, which they're calling a foot injury and not an ankle injury, even though it looked like it was his ankle at first. Apparently, he didn't fracture anything, according to the MRI that he took. So good news there, but it might be like I don't want to say Liz Frank or like we'll have to see. Well, I'll let the fantasy doctors and the people on Twitter who know medicine talk about it more, and then I'll update you guys more when I know more, because I think George Kittle might be out for a bit of time, so that's unfortunate if you have him, or if you, I don't know, if you're a Niners fan or whatever. But if you have Brandon Ayuk, that probably upgrades him as the like sole guy in this offense. And for what it's worth, Brandon Ayuk came through in this game, 11 targets, 8 receptions, 91 yards, and a touchdown. The touchdown came in garbage time, but even before that, he was having a solid game, and the touchdown was kind of just like a cherry on top for that. Some people asked me if they could start Kendrick Bourne. I told them it's a little too cute, but if you didn't listen to me and started him anyway, he had 10 targets, 8 receptions, 81 yards. So he had a pretty solid game if you were forced to start him in a pinch. Yeah, George Kittle, a bit of a disappointing game, as I mentioned, but he did leave this game with an injury. Yeah, so if George Kittle, I would say from like a waiver wire perspective in this game, if George Kittle is out, then I would say that Kendrick Bourne becomes more interesting. And not only that, but Ross Dwelley, the backup tight end, becomes more interesting as well, because we've seen him perform when Kittle has not been in the lineup, and Jordan Reed's no longer on the in the active roster because he's on IR as well. So if Kittle's going to be out for a couple weeks, I think Ross Dwelley is like a top 20 tight end that you can actually play pretty confidently, because this offense and this system kind of revolves around the tight end position. And then lastly on this game, the running back position, JaMychal Hasty did get the majority of carries. He got 12 carries compared to the 3 and 3 that Jerick McKinnon and Tevin Coleman got. So, I mean, he's the back to own in this game, in this backfield, I guess, right now. But again, like I've said numerous times, the 49ers backfield, it wouldn't shock me if next week Tevin Coleman gets 10 carries, 20 carries, like whatever. So as of right now, we're going to operate under the assumption that JaMychal Hasty's the dude until Raheem Mostert comes back. But he didn't really do that well for you. He had a touchdown that kind of saved his day, but overall not great from him. And then on to the final game of the slate here. We had the Saints winning an overtime matchup against the Chicago Bears, 26-23. Drew Brees in this game actually came through if you started him in fantasy, 280 and 2 through the air. And then Alvin Kamara didn't even get into the end zone this game, but he's so safe from a volume perspective that it doesn't even matter, because he got 12 carries, 67 yards on the ground, and he had 13 targets, 9 receptions, 96 yards through the air. So no touchdowns in this game for Alvin Kamara. If he got in the end zone once or twice, he would have had a 40-point game, because that kind of volume is just ridiculous. And if he's going to continue to get, like, I think he's had like 8+ targets in like 6 of 8 games now, which is just absolute ridiculous volume for a running back. So Alvin Kamara, as far as I'm concerned, is the RB1 in fantasy. We'll have to see once Christian McCaffrey comes back next week if that changes. But as of right now, it's Alvin Kamara and a pretty steep drop-off to Derrick Henry after that. Jared Cook in this game came through for you if you had to start him. Traquan Smith, not so much. He only had 43 yards, 5 receptions. Didn't kill you, I guess. Taysom Hill siphons a touchdown. What else is new? And then on the Bears side of things, Nick Foles, not a terrible game, I guess, but not a great game either. David Montgomery actually averaged over 4 yards per carry, so cheers up to that guy. Probably the first time in his career I've ever seen him run for more than like 70 yards. He still sucks, so I'm not going to give him too much credit. And then Allen Robinson continues to do Allen Robinson things, 6 receptions, 87 yards, and a touchdown. Darnell Mooney, for what it's worth, is looking like maybe not like an every week starter for fantasy or anything, but a guy that you can desperation play because he's talented. He's really good. 5 receptions, 69 yards, and a touchdown. He had a 50-yard bomb in this game that he caught. And Darnell Mooney looks good, and hopefully his role expands, because he honestly looks better than Anthony Miller, who actually had a pretty good game in this one as well. 8 receptions for 73 yards for him. But Darnell Mooney is looking kind of like what Darius Slayton was last year, this 5th-round rookie that comes in and just kind of produces and just makes big plays. So Darnell Mooney, if you own him in like a dynasty league, is looking like a nice find for you, because he probably was like a guy you took in like the 4th round or whatever. And he's actually a guy that if you're in bye week hell or whatever, that you could throw into your lineup if you're like really screwed. So good for him. And then Jimmy Graham had a pretty disappointing game in this one, 2 receptions for 13 yards on 7 targets. Yeah, that's about it. If as I mentioned, guys, if you enjoyed this, leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel. If you are new, leave any of your comments down below. Check out patreon.com/fantasy stock exchange if you wish to support the channel financially. Peace out, guys. Enjoy your Monday, and I will talk to you next time.